Good morning. This is Jamal Hassan from the Voice Studio in Washington, D.C., USA. Welcome to Jamal Hassan Show. Today, I'm going to introduce Mr. Sharjeel Neshat from Toronto, Ontario. Sharjeel Neshat is a Canadian of Bangladesh heritage. Sharjeel is a social activist who obtained Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from York University, Toronto. Professionally, Sharjeel Neshat is administering the security affairs at a real estate company in Toronto. Politically, Sharjeel identifies himself as a classical liberal and feels liberalism is under attack and hijacked by bad actors. He is neither on the left nor right wing of the political spectrum and feels both are wrong in their own unique ways. He sees himself in the radical center. As far as his likes and interests go, Sharjeel Neshat is a music lover, especially a fan of heavy metal music. He occasionally plays guitar and developed a newfound interest on the viola. Welcome, Sharjeel Neshat.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Thank you for having me.
Okay, you know that last night was a epoch-making thing happen in Western Hemisphere, especially in American continent or in United States. The lunar module integrity from the rocket Artemis 2 splashed down on Pacific last night. It was a great achievement of the Western civilization, I would say. This is the first time any human rocket, when consisting of human beings, I would say that's Artemis 2. It went farthest point in our solar system. You probably know that. No? And it went and it had a flyby and it had overlooked the other side of the moon. I would say it was a great achievement thanks to the secular West. Any comment on that?
Well, like you said, it's a huge achievement. That's the best I can say. If we can reach the moon, that means we can reach anywhere. So nothing is impossible. The sky
Mr.
is the
Nishot,
limit.
I agree with you. We can achieve anything. We can someday we may reach Mars, and it's not too far. But one thing we have to admit: the science and technology, that all the uh, um, mushroom growth of the invention, these are done because of the free thinking nature of the Western people, especially because of the separation of church and state. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It's because of the separation of church and state. We have been able to achieve, a lot of things, because I remember seeing a video recently, um, saying that the reason why various societies in the past suffered was because the religion was very intrusive in social and political and cultural and even intellectual affairs, and and the reason why the West was among the reasons why the West was able to go forward was because of the invention of the printing press, and after the invention of the printing press, the first ever book that was published was the Holy Bible, because at that time the Bible was only accessible to a select few, not everyone. And at the same time, we have to admit that education back then was very, very expensive. It was not easily and hence it wasn't easily accessible. But thanks to the printing press, you know, that was the beginning of many miracles. But so when the thing is, religion does not have to be a bad force, but when it becomes very dogmatic and very authoritarian, you know, and that's where we need to be very careful, and that's where we need to draw the line. Yeah.
Mr. Nishat, can you tell me your background, your childhood days, where you grew up?
Well, I was born in Bangladesh. I'm a second generation Bangladeshi. Um, but I mostly spent my life overseas. I lived in the UAE and even in Saudi Arabia when I was very little. I spent I would say maximum 4 or 5 years of my entire life in Bangladesh, and I moved to Canada in December of '97. Then I went back to the UAE to finish my studies. Then my mom, and my sister, we uh, settled permanently here in Toronto in July of '98, and I was here for 14 years. Then again relocated to UAE, and I've been back, and I'm back. I came back to Canada in December of 2020, right on Christmas Eve, and I've been here since again. Yeah.
With your few words, after hearing what you said about science, technology, church and state, I realize that you are not exactly, you are not Islamist, or you are far from a political Islamist.
No.
So why,
Well,
even, with your upbringing in the Middle East, why you could not become, I'm posing a blunt question, why you did not become an Islamist, where I see American-born young Bangladeshi Muslims or Pakistani or Indian Muslims are becoming hardcore Islamists. It's a very dismal picture. But why
yeah.
you did not turn out to be another Islamist growing up in
Well, thing
Dubai
is,
or in Saudi?
I would say the main development of myself happened in Dubai, during the '90s, because Dubai is a cosmopolitan city, if not the most cosmopolitan city in the world. You have people from virtually every nationality, so it's a city of strangers. And the thing is, I always saw myself as a citizen of the world rather than just of one or a few countries, and that has been my outlook and uh, overall outlook. So I see things from a global perspective rather than communal or nationalistic perspectives. Yeah.
Did you have non-Muslim friends when you were in the high school, or
Oh
or
yes,
in elementary
absolutely,
school?
absolutely.
So you never sort of have negative views about the quote unquote infidels?
Well, back then, maybe sometimes I would have, and sometimes I may have a little, somewhat supremacist views. Uh, but the thing is, I always had, non-Muslim friends, and I never discriminated them in any way. A few unfortunate events that took place was. Uh, I I think it was late '92, the Babri Masjid, affair.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
recall. Yes, yes.
yeah. So unfortunately, that time, I was very young that time, and I jumped on the bandwagon. And that time, I was a huge fan of cricket. I used to have posters of well-known cricketers like Kapil Dev, Sachin Tendulkar, uh, and many others. So that time, I took their posters down, and I'm very embarrassed by that. And then my dad asked me, why did he do that? You should keep sports and uh, such affairs separately, and also my dad told me that you should look at everyone as human beings first. Then everything is secondary, like religion, nationality, class, caste, etc. Yeah.
Hats
And
off to your dad. Hats off to
that
your dad.
yes, I really thank him for that. Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand, I, came to know, I know of a young man, in a northeastern state. whose father is a Muslim originally from India, came to America at the age of 10. And when he became the father, he told his children, don't mix with infidels in America. So that
Wow.
is the thing. And it's a very alarming. I'm talking about Muslim in America of Indian origin, and they have got such discriminatory views about non-Muslims, even living, thriving in infidel country like America. It's a very, very disappointing. Don't you agree?
Absolutely, because thing is, uh, places like America, like especially the countries in the Anglosphere in the West, like America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and even the UK, they are all very pluralistic and diverse societies, and there should be no reason why we should have um, any kind of bigoted and supremacist views of others against others. Yeah. The thing is, people might bring factors like uh, unemployment, discrimination, racism for such reasons, but they are not excuses. But if you uh, when we raise our kids with very hateful and supremacist views, they will end up like that. That is where we need to draw a line. And um, and I would say it is also a failure of Western policies like multiculturalism, which has allowed such things. And because thing is, different people of different cultures, they segregate themselves, they become very insular, and hence they create their own enclaves as a result.
So multiculturalism is not a salad bowl. It's a kind of a creation of ghettos, you can say, or
Absolutely,
enclave.
yeah.
So one thing if you want to talk about the mindset of Islamists or Islamic supremacists, there are two parallel things going on. And the example I gave, the father of the young men who told their children that don't mix with infidels. That is one thing, that they have probably ingrained attitude towards non-Muslims. On the other hand, we know in Sunni Islamic world, the political Islam basically emerged, you can say maybe in the 1700s with the Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab, or later on after 1900s, Sayyid Qutb or Hassan al-Banna. So Wahhab, Qutb and Banna, they were probably the architects of modern Islamism. And you can add Sayyid Abul Ala Maududi of Pakistan, and in a Jamaat-e-Islami founder. So these are the theologians, and they actually politicize the religion in a sense. So in a sense, also, uh, um, Islam is not at the moment, I'm talking about the political Islam is not like Christianity, Judaism, or even Hinduism to some extent, but Hinduta is rising. But if you want to say which religion has the global reach, it is only political Islam or radical Islam. It reaches the White House, from Timbuktu to Washington, D.C. What's your take on that?
Well, I say that Islamism, or if we want to call it political Islam or even radical Islam, is not only a threat to the West. It is a threat. It is a global threat to the whole world. Even I would say it's a threat in Muslim majority countries. It does not have to be just the West. Since we both are of Bangladeshi origin, you probably have heard of this meditation uh, group called Quantum in
Yeah.
Bangladesh.
Hmm.
If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, the thing is, I also took. I and my mom, we both are graduates of the Silva mind, self control method, which is also has a lot of meditation, practices among other things. And if I remember, the founder of quantum used to be, part of the Silva method, and then because the Silva method is a little, expensive, it's not very accessible, so that's why he created this whole thing called quantum. And however, Silva method did not have anything, any religious, spice to it, but quantum, he added, he basically Islamicized it. He has to use the word Allah every time, so I find that very, very alienating. So
it's very disappointing, very unfortunate.
It is very disappointing. So
yeah.
Now regarding Islamism, it is not just I would say it's a kind of imperialism and colonialism. Because it doesn't just involve religious aspects. It involves even socio-cultural aspects. The thing is, now, since we, especially among South Asians, and especially among Bangladeshi, since we both are of Bangladeshi origin, I see that there's a competition who can be more Arab than the next these days. Yeah.
You see now, that in Toronto and Dhaka.
Oh, absolutely, especially here.
Among I would say among that current trend among American Muslim youth, or Muslim American of a younger generation, I would say 18 to 30, this age group. So many of them, especially educated ones, are falling victim to Muslim Student Association, or MSA. The Muslim Student Association was established in 1963 in North America. It has chapters in many of the Ivy League universities and regular universities in America, United States of America, and also in Canada. So I know, I'm almost certain that this Muslim Student Association has a political agenda, because I saw the transformation or metamorphosis of a secular young man who was growing up in a high school with non-Muslim friends, and they gradually becoming zombies, and very, in a sense, you can say brain-dead zombies. They don't have the critical mind. You understand? So in this case, I would give two parallels. The mainstream Christians, many of them in America, in Western Europe, they are going away from the churches. When I was working with the US Department of Justice, I had two colleagues. One is an African American who used to go to Baptist church. The other one is Roman Catholic. Okay. I remember the Roman Catholic colleague of mine who once told me, Jamal, Old Testament has some problems. I agree, especially dealing with the women or all this. So we have to agree there are some problems. But she used to go to the church. Similarly, the other one, other colleague who used to go to Baptist church, he said, Jamal, in thousands of years ago, God didn't have any tape recorder. So how can I say the Bible's every word is God's word? He had those skepticism, okay? And both of them believers, they believe God in their own way. But I would say maybe they have enlightened mind. Mr. Nisho, we say curiosity kills the cat. And I can say sarcastically, curiosity can kill the iman. Unfortunately, if you look into scripture, primary scripture, many Muslims would not even dare to touch this subject, how to beat your wife, talking about that, or even the Prophet of Islam, in those questions, why he had to marry, his adoptive son's wife, or those kind of things. So why, they may not ask the questions why God has to do the micromanagement in somebody's household, okay? Or even in a Sahih Bukhari. Sahih Bukhari, even it's not God's book, but unfortunately, Sunni Muslims take it as a very sacred book. You know that secondary scripture. In Sahih Bukhari, the brutality aspect is shown, like the Prophet of Islam, when he basically allowed his disciples to punish a young man who stole a lamb and to put a red hot iron in his eyes. So I'm talking about in Christian society, many of the young Christians, they can pick and choose, and they know, yeah, 1400, 2000 years ago, Bible has those things, or Old Testament, those things. We don't have to agree 100%, but we have to take spiritually, it's not literally everything. But Muslims even do not even scrutinize their things. Rather, they blindly, like a flock of cattle, or what you call it, or blind some zombies, they become what? They follow a cult like religion, political Islam, and they basically believe in an enclave of what I call it, supremacist, hateful, a group. And even you would be surprised that gradually what happens in America and even in Canada, the young Muslims, they like to congregate among themselves. They don't like to deal with infidels. And if you challenge them, okay, you are living in infidel land, you have to be grateful, because all this progress from Facebook, iPhone, everything is done, everything is created by the infidels. Rocket,
Absolutely.
everything, even the lights, electricity, infidels. But some of them think with a very mental gymnastic way. Some of them would say, no, it's Allah's area, and they are the people. Okay, but we are the, and Quran, some of them say Quran has all the answers to science and technology, everything. This is the problem with the mental gymnastic, zombie type of Muslims. What any comment on that?
Well, I would say the heart of the problem, Mr. Hassan, is that it's not just with Islam. I would say in general, we need to get rid of. The thing is, in the West, when people think of freedom of religion, they think strictly from a Christian perspective, not from a a general perspective. Because thing is, for Christians, freedom of religion just means freedom of worship. That's it. But they don't realize that just like we say all cultures are not equal. So likewise, all religions are not equal either. And we don't not all of us see religion in the same way. You understand my point here. Thing is, with when it comes to say faiths like Judaism and Islam, it's not just worship. You have many things involved. You have rules, regulations, laws, customs, etc. So that means we have to support their rights to such things. So that is one thing, and thing is, I personally feel that freedom of religion needs to be regulated. Now in America, I'm sure you know better than me that the government is thinking of getting rid of birthright citizenship, right? Am I correct? So I think globally we need to get rid of religion by birthright. I don't believe that anyone should have a religion before becoming an adult, before becoming 18, because thing is, the child must have the freedom and the opportunity to explore what religion is good for him or her, rather than have his parents or any religious institution tell him what is right for him.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah, and the thing is, since we know in Bangladeshi, Muslim societies and communities that, they say, you are born into a Muslim family, you are a Muslim or else, So, they are already, that itself is, I say is child abuse, and that you're already, imposing and fear in the child, and which has many, negative outcomes and repercussions as well. Yeah.
One thing also we have to,
And I'd like to add that it is also a failure in the West. The Western takes a lot of pride in their achievements, especially in their inventions and in their progress and inventions and other advancements. I personally believe that we need to have critical thinking in our education curriculum, so that people, they can learn to question themselves before accepting anything as the absolute truth. Yes, go ahead.
that is the
Mr.
question,
Hassan.
and that's the point also regarding belief in any religious doctrine. In 2004, here's a picture I see.
Thank you.
Mr. Nishad, this picture, can you tell us exactly why it was taken?
This is in this is in Haifa. This was taken in in Haifa, Israel. So behind me is the dome of the Shrine of Bob. I'm a Baha'i, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
So you had been to Israel recently?
Yes, just 4 months back for a week.
Oh, I see.
And I went there as a part of a multi-faith and interfaith delegation.
This is also a picture from multi-faith. Can you tell us exactly who were in your delegation?
Oh, I would love to. I was invited by Mrs. Rahil Raza, who is a well-known activist, journalist, and she's a great figure in the Muslim reform movement. And
this picture is also from Haifa.
Yeah, that is also in Haifa,
okay,
right on
go ahead.
Mount Carmel. Yeah.
Okay.
So I called her up just because I wanted to discuss with her about Islamic reform. This photo is in Germany, and that is of the Baha'i temple in Germany, in close to Frankfurt. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So Rahil Raza is from which country? She's
originally from Pakistan. And so I contacted her because I needed to discuss with her about Islamic reform, and because in the past many initiatives for Islamic reform have been unsuccessful. So I'd like to give her my take as an ex-Muslim, how how they can go forward with this. And I do unlike other ex-Muslims who see Islam very negatively, I do have I do have optimism and hope for an Islamic reform, because if Judaism could go through a reform, so can Islam. We need to give them a chance. And we need to give.
You are talking about no more stoning to death adulterous women in a Judaism, which was a custom once.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know that, but unfortunately, in Afghanistan and Iran, it happened also.
Unfortunately, yes,
yeah.
Yes,
stoning to death. Yeah.
So
yeah,
then Mrs. Rahil and her husband Sohail, they asked me, what's your take on Israel? I said that, well, I'm actually supportive of Israel, but at the same time, I'm supportive of innocent Palestinians who have nothing to do with this conflict. Then, he asked me, would you like to come to Israel with us? So, and the rest is history. So in this delegation, there 5 were Muslims. I was the only Baha'i. There was a Brazilian Christian couple, pastor couple. There was a Hindu couple as well, and there was one Sikh. There were supposed to be 2 more people, but unfortunately they could not make it. Their visas were denied. One of them was a Kurdish Iraqi, what do you call it? Yazidi, yeah, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. Yeah.
You are the only one originally from Bangladesh.
Yes, I was the only
And
Bangladeshi.
there are some Pakistani people from Pakistani descent also.
Yeah, well, all the Muslims, the 5 Muslims, they were all of Pakistani origin.
Very interesting, very interesting. So you had
Yeah.
a wonderful time there. But
Oh yes,
yeah.
It was the weather was amazing. The people were friendly, but unfortunately, it was too short. You know, that was my only thing, and I wish we had more times to interact with.
Did you have any experience in Gaza area, close to Gaza?
Actually, we were our original plan was to go to the Gaza border, but we had to make adjustments. Probably my most heartbreaking day was the 2nd of December, when we all of us had to go to the kibbutz Nir Oz, which was one of the places that Hamas attacked and and committed a massacre.
October 7th.
On the 7th of October, 2023, and it was very, very heartbreaking. Many people say that this is a hoax. This is a plan, but the thing is, I've been there. I've walked through the rubble and the debris, and I have photographs on my phone to prove that. And after that, we did go to the Nova Festival site, where the Hamas also committed a massacre. Yeah, but thing is, I would like to tell everyone that Israel is not perfect, and does not pretend to be perfect. But I would say, from all the places I've been to in the Middle East, it is probably the best one. But it has room for improvement, as far as I can say. And when people say that Israel is an apartheid state, that is the biggest lie ever. Because I've seen Arabs, there. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, about
with equal opportunities, that is.
Now talking about again that mushroom growth of political Islam in the Western societies, we can blame 3 countries: Turkey, Qatar, and Pakistan.
Oh,
so
yes.
Turkey is affluent, more or less. Qatar is the richest, one of the richest countries in the world. But you probably know that Qatar has funneled billions of dollars in American academia. And
oh, yes.
you don't know the Muslim Brotherhood, especially in the deep rooting of Muslim Brotherhood in America. Many people can blame that it's funded by countries like Qatar or other Gulf countries. I don't know. But one thing you have to know, and if you don't know, Muslim Student Association, MSA.
Okay.
MSA is directly tied to Muslim Brotherhood. Now,
really,
you are talking about one thing. There are a lot of research done, and I can give you the links. So, one thing you are talking about freedom of religion. Hypothetically speaking, do you think any American administration would ever bother to disband MSA or Muslim Student Association? Because don't you think it will be contrary to the freedom of religion?
No. This has been in my mind for a while, because thing is, if any group is affiliated with a very dangerous ideology or organization, it needs to be shut down immediately. Like you said, the MSA is linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is a designated terrorist organization in the West.
Also in Arab countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would say the West. But the thing is, many Western countries have allowed the Muslim Brotherhood to exist, especially Europe. I think it is banned in Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and even Egypt, which is the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Correct.
So if these countries can ban, why can't the whole world?
Unfortunately, in America, it's not done yet, although there are some hue and cry in Congress, but it didn't. Okay, talking about the, basically U.S. Congress, and we discussed that Congressman, now no more, Mr. Peter King from New York, he, initiated a hearing on Muslim radicalization in USA in March of 2011, and AIF did, you can see the poster, it is the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. initiated by Mr.
First witness today,
Dr. Zuhdi
Dr.
Jasser. Here is
Zuhdi
Peter King.
Jasser, is
He's
the president and founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, a devout Muslim. Dr. Jasser founded.
And you see, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser was
AIFD,
in the hearing.
an
I
American
was
Muslim
there.
voice advocating for the preservation
Oh,
of the founding principles of the United States Constitution. I must say, as a member of Congress, I remember Dr. Jasser when he was here. He's a respected physician and a former lieutenant commander of the United States Navy, and he actually worked in the attending physician's office here in the United States Capitol. For better or worse, he kept us healthy. Some of our constituents may not be too happy about that, but you did a great job of keeping us very healthy. And again, I appreciate you being here today. And gentleman is recognized, Dr. Jasser. Doctor, if you put on the microphone there, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman King, Ranking Member Thompson, distinguished members of the committee, for seeking my testimony on what I feel is the most important threat to American security in the 21st century. And as Chairman King said, I come to you as a devout Muslim and somebody that is very concerned about our country, and not only its polarization, but its paralysis in dealing with this problem. We formed our organization to address this, but yet we've not been able to even move one step forward significantly because of that paralysis. One camp on the polarization refuses to believe that any Muslim could be radicalized, and yet we see, as we've discussed here until now, a significant increase in the number, an exponential increase in the number of radicalized Muslims that may not be from within our communities that we know, but are Muslims nonetheless. On the other side of the polarity is those that feel that Islam is the problem. They want to label Muslims as all one collective and really are seeking no solutions. I think in the majority in the middle is modern America that is looking for a solution, and I think these hearings are an opportunity for Muslims to address that solution.
Dr. Zasser,
let me be clear and state up front that unequivocally for the record that the U.S. has a significant problem with Muslim radicalization.
2011, see, there was an attempt to, go to the Congress and spread the word. I was there. I met Dr. Zuhdi Jasser for the first time during the hearing. What I saw, there was a Code Pink, the ultra-left group. They were basically splashing pink color on everybody who is in favor of the hearing. And I saw all the Democrats, congressmen, senators, they were against the hearing. They simply victimized, they ostracized Dr. Jasser and other, like Dr. Kanta Ahmed, another witness.
Okay.
So Dr. Kanta Ahmed, I think she worked in Saudi Arabia a long time ago. So this is the situation. After that, you can go to Google and you'll see PBS, NPR, all the public broadcasting entities, outlets, CNN. Not only that, American Civil Liberty Union, they were against the hearing. They were saying anti-Muslim bigotry and all this. So
really,
everything. Wow. I mean, unfortunately, the attempt was nipped in the bud. And now, what we see? We see tremendous proliferation of Muslim student associations activities. I see young students from high school. They join that club. They become zombies. They hate Western values. They hate infidels. They congregate among themselves. Mr. Neshat, do you think today or tomorrow, this type of segregated supremacist community might pose a threat to America or any other Western countries?
I would say they would pose a threat to everywhere, not just.
No, they're not armed. They're not armed. They're just meeting okay. They're meeting like Amish people. Amish, Amish.
Okay.
Any comment? Like okay. Amish are segregated. Amish.
Okay.
Or even Orthodox Jews, Hasidic Jews with the long hair.
Okay. Regarding the Amish and the ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jews, they don't. They have their own communal, issues and affairs. They don't go to other, they don't knock on other doors and and pose a threat. They have their own issues. They don't. They wouldn't come and tell the Amish wouldn't come and tell me, to stop using electricity, or the Hasidic Jew will not come and tell me why am I not growing, one of those long sideburns, or anything like that. But thing is, Islamists are social tyrants. That I have to say that. And if you don't mind, Mr. Hassan, I'd like to share a quote by John Stuart Mill, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, just bear with me. I have it on my phone somewhere. Okay, got it. Let me see. Okay. Okay. This is from John Stuart Mill, who is a great who was a great philosopher, and who was one of the among the greatest thinkers of liberalism. In his essay called "On Liberty," he said, "Like other tyrannies, the tyranny of the majority was at first and is still vulgarly held in dread, chiefly as operating through the acts of public authorities, but reflecting persons perceived that when society is itself the tyrant, society collectively, over the separate individuals who compose it, its means of tyrannizing are not restricted to the acts of which it may do by the hands of its political functionaries. Society can and does execute its own mandates. And if it issues wrong mandates instead of right, or any mandates at all in things with which it ought not to meddle, it practices a social tyranny more formidable than many kinds of political oppression, since though not usually upheld by such extreme penalties, it leaves fewer means of escape, penetrating much more deeply into details of life and enslaving the soul itself." So, I wouldn't like I'd like to leave that there because it's a much longer paragraph in that essay. So, like John Stuart Mill said, that social tyranny is more dangerous than state tyranny. When your next door neighbor is always interfering in your everyday affairs in your life, you're gonna lose your soul eventually. Like it says there. You're not gonna have you'll feel constantly under threat and living on the edge every time. Yeah.
Very good point. Obviously, noted. Now, we are talking about, I think offline, like minutes ago, we are talking about reformist. Can you elaborate any reformist that you remember, like any from the Islamic side? I mean,
well, I mean,
I'm talking about that is the gentleman who passed away. I think the Imam from Michigan. I think he was.
Well, I don't know if I would call him a
Imam, or basically, but he's a theologian.
He's a sheikh. He's a Sufi. He was sorry.
Oh,
was.
Sufi. Yeah. Can you give us some details on it?
Well, Sheikh Hisham Kabani, he was a Sufi sheikh of the Naqshbandi order, if I remember, and he was based in Michigan, and he always, talked against, Islamism and religious extremism, among Muslim societies, and the fact that if I could share what was mentioned in the Wikipedia article, it said that in 1999, Sheikh Kabani came into conflict with various Muslim groups, including the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, the Council of American Islamic Relations, CARE, and the Islamic Circle of North America, after he stated that 80% of mosques are being run by extremist ideologies. And also, Mr. Hassan, before 9/11 happened, he has warned various departments of the American federal government to act against, that, the Wahhabi Salafi extremism that has, taken hold in the West. But unfortunately, he was ignored and treated as an alarmist. And unfortunately, Sheikh Kabbani received a lot of death threats from Islamists. And it's not surprising that even ISIS, declared him as an apostate, a murtad. Yeah.
Apostasy in Islam is not allowed, and that may be one of the reasons that many of the ex-Muslims, they are not daring to show their faces. And
well, again, regarding apostasy, that itself is open to debate. Like, what does it really mean there? Yeah.
And it's not like other religions. You probably know that Tony Blair's sister-in-law, who converted to Islam, got red carpet treatment when she came to Maryland, USA. You understand?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Tony Blair's sister-in-law became Muslim. So, but
Okay.
becoming Muslim, Middle East, some of the Middle Eastern countries, they will beat their drums and oh my God. But somebody from Islam to Christianity, Judaism, or even being atheist, you understand, is
Oh, yes.
something like maybe $1 million on his head or whoever. Anyway,
Yes.
I want to go to the Iran. Iran is now burning issue, and today Islamabad, there is a the so-called peace treaty or peace talk going on between from American side, Vice President Jerry Vance, Jared Kushner, Witkoff, and on the other side probably Abbas Araghchi and Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the Parliament. Araghchi is the Foreign Minister of Iran. We know the history, and I got a number of Iranian American friends. They said that 1979 Iranian revolution was patronized by Carter administration in USA. Not only that, Britain and France had a diabolical role. But we knew that Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was, residing in Paris for 10 years, and he used to send cassettes of his lectures. But anyway, initially, America didn't imagine that Iran would be such a dogmatic country, and 444 days, the radical young Iranians, they captured, the U.S. embassy for 444 days. American diplomats were hostages. Okay, and we saw from the outset that, as Condoleezza Rice, former National Security Advisor, recently articulated that in 1983 Marine Barak attack or USS Cole attack. So they were actually attacking right and left from the outset. And they had Iran was at war with Iraq for 10 years, after 1980s. Right now we see that Shiite theocracy is another, chapter in global Islamism. Do you have any comment on that? Whether Shiaism, there was no Wahhab, there was no Sayyid Qutb. How suddenly Shiaism or Shia Islam became like political Sunni Islam?
Very good question.
Almost like the same thing, leaves of the same book.
Yeah, very good question. Okay, regarding Shia Islam, I need to mention this, that in traditional Shia Islam, these clerics are not supposed to be in political power. Now, to the best of my knowledge, what Ayatollah Khomeini did was he promoted the idea of Wilayatul Faqih, like the guardianship of the jurists. Now, that is where the whole politicization came in. And since Mr. Hassan, you had the pleasure of meeting what was that filmmaker, Banafsheh Zand? She herself said that there are more clerics in prison than in government. Now, thing is, in Shia Islam, like I said, the clerics should not have political power. The only people who were, who had the privilege would be the main imams, like the 12 imams, like Ali, Hassan, Hussein, and the remaining. Because the role of the cleric is to guide and protect the community, especially from oppression, not when it becomes the tool of oppression. Now, regarding the Islamist regime in Iran, they were. Yeah, you're right. There was no, Ibn al-Wahhab or whatever, but the Muslim Brotherhood ideology did influence them. Both Khomeini and Khamenei, who was killed recently, because I saw a couple of videos by a good reformist Muslim who is a Shia. His name is Imam Muhammad Tawhidi. He said that when Khamenei was in prison during the time of the last Shah, the book he requested to read while he was in prison was In the Shade of the Quran by Sayyid Qutb, who was one of the main figures and pioneers of the Muslim Brotherhood. And if my memory is correct, even Ayatollah Khomeini was influenced by Sayyid Qutb's poetry, if I'm not mistaken, among others. So the Muslim Brotherhood ideology is very, very dangerous. It is very poisonous. It is the parent of all the extremist Islamist branches, whether it's Al Qaeda, ISIS, or whatever. Even the Shias. The thing is, and this is my question here. Both Sunnis and Shias, they can't stand each other. They cannot stand each other. But so why would any Shia intellectual, borrow something from, these Sunni, Muslim intellectuals, and vice versa? So that's my question. And regarding the regime in Iran. Like Sunnis don't consider Shias as Muslims, but when it comes to standing against the West, they'll all back Iran. That's what they do. So yeah. So going back to the theocracy in Iran, like I would say this has more Sunni roots than anything else. Yeah.
Look at that. One comment came from a viewer. Lebanon was peaceful till radical Islam entered. Hence, don't be generous to them. No, we are not generous.
We're not generous.
No. Lebanon was peaceful until Shiite influenced Hezbollah, got into action, I would say.
Well, I would say Lebanon had its own.
Or before that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
I would say, from the best of my knowledge, Lebanon had its own, complex and complicated problems. Like it already had a the country was already divided by sectarianism and religion. The president has to be of a certain faith. The prime minister has to be of a certain faith. This was there already. And then when it started, hosting these Palestinian refugees, which became the cause of the Lebanese civil war, and then Hezbollah took a route, and which is financed by the Islamist regime in Iran. Yeah, and the rest is, I would say, history.
In a sense, the Iranian regime, instead of helping the poor Iranians, they are basically supporting all the proxies, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, or Iraqi militias in Iraq, So that's, or even militias in Syria. So, so it was not innocent child. But you see, Mr. Neshat, 99% Bangladeshi YouTubers or so-called PhD holders, professors, they give them easy, a clean bill of health. The Iranian regime were the victims. They didn't touch. They had no blood in hand. But unfortunately, you had been to Israel, and you know that obviously the excesses done by Netanyahu, and you said already Israel is not perfect. And obviously, you also know that in Gaza, the killings in Gaza, it was overestimated by the so-called medical or health ministry of Hamas. You know that there's a propaganda war both sides, but nobody
Yes.
agreed that. But on the other hand, look, in Gaza, maybe 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people got killed in how many years? 3 years or 2.5 years. But in Iran, within 2 weeks, 40,000 people died. But CNN or or even Fox, they didn't cover that prominently. Basically, why the American media's double standard?
Well, if you want me to tell the truth, no Jews, no news.
This is a very
It's
much
all it's
big
anti-Semitism.
picture you portray.
Yeah, well, it's not. It's not only that. Even when you call these, far leftists, these so-called liberals, whom I don't consider liberals, when it was, bleeding for Palestine and Gaza, they're all there in the streets, shouting, screaming, and intimidating everyone. But when it came to Iran, everyone was silent. Everyone was silent.
Now, Mr. Nishat, as an American, I definitely, tend to support steps by our administration, but not necessarily all the time. But regarding Iran, I wholeheartedly supported the Trump administration steps. But I also understand one thing, that American national security is more important than human rights in Iran. So even the White House would care more about if clergies or the Ayatollahs have enriched uranium, more than if 100,000 people got killed on the streets. So it is actually the objective is to uproot the government. My Iranian American friend said, if you even give concession to the wounded tiger, Iran will become in future, under these weak leaders, whoever it is, Iran will become another North Korea. I can quote a ex-wrestler of Iran. I think he is in the West now, and he said, don't give CPR to a dying patient. Now, today's important talk, I don't know what they talked about. So being a Baha'i, and I understand that you are like me, you are a great supporter of Iranian people's emancipation. I'm a supporter. 40 years I have been in a battle against the regime. So are you optimistic that finally the regime will change in real sense? That means we'll see a secular new administration in Iran, or it will
Yes,
be
I am very
old wine in the new bottle?
No, I am very, very optimistic.
Why?
Because thing is, the regime right now is in its deathbed, because a good portion, of the regime has been decapitated, because the existing Ayatollah, where is he? He's seen nowhere.
You're talking Mustafa Khamenei.
Mustafa Khamenei.
We don't know exactly whether he is alive or even in coma. We don't know.
And within the IRGC, if I'm not mistaken, there's already a civil war going on, and the way the Iranian state is structured, you have the IRGC, but you also have the normal army, which stands up for the people. So once they start opposing the government and standing up for the people, then the people will be armed, and eventually, God willing, inshallah, Bezrat Hashem, we will see a free Iran. Yeah.
Do you think that it will be if Iran really become free, secular forces prevail?
Yeah.
If so, it will have an impact, because I am very, very much frustrated with the situation in countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh, for example. Bangladesh, when we were growing up in the university in 1972-73 in Dhaka University, there were no hijab or chador. But you see, they are more Catholic than the Pope. In Iran, you can see even under the Ayatollahs, you can see women showing hair, part of hair. You go to any of the documentary, like a latest, Iranian mall, for example, you'll see 60% women are not wearing any chador nowadays because Ayatollahs has liberalized. At least you probably know that. As far as the women's attire is concerned, in Bangladesh they are becoming more and more Islamized, and you see in a Daily Star commentator wearing hijab, and some YouTubers, maybe a food blogger, his wife proudly showing his wife with with a single hair visible. You understand? Without. So this is the situation, and also in the vocabulary. By the way, when you were growing up, even Dubai, was Allah Hafiz a common word? Allah Hafiz was
No.
by Ziaul Haq of Pakistan in 1980s, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Allah Hafiz, it was a Khoda, and Khoda is like a non-Muslim word, like a Persian word.
Yes.
Allah Hafiz came, and when I was growing up, people didn't start Alhamdulillah in every sentence. So Bangladesh is becoming 100 times more Islamized during the last 20 years.
Yes.
Every word, every sentence, you have to bring God. You don't have to bring God in everything. So I say, hey, Alhamdulillah, Sherjil, how are you? Oh, mashallah, you are doing good. Why you have to bring Allah in every word? Because of the tremendous outpouring of radical or religiosity, I would say.
Yes.
So this was not so, in a sense, a secular country, and I don't know whether it can go back. I don't know, and it may become more and more Islamized, more and more. You understand? And
Yes.
and I'm giving some example. In 2018 or 17, I went to Dhaka. In certain areas in Tejgaon, I saw during the Ramadan time. Ramadan time, daytime, many restaurants are open. I could say 70% restaurants are open. Even one morning I had breakfast, I saw a mullah with a short pajama. You know, some mullahs have short pajama. You can see the ankle. He was eating. Funny. But I saw poor rickshaw pullers were, sweating, and they could they could get cold bottle waters. Those were the scene during Sheikh Hasina time. I'm talking about 2018 or something. Now, most restaurants are closed, just like in the Middle East. During the Ramadan time, you were in Dubai also. I was in Kuwait, I was in Saudi Arabia. During the daytime, restaurants do not serve food. In Pakistan time, going back to Pakistan under Ayub Khan, we went to restaurants during Ramadan time. It was covered, but they were operational. I cannot remember if in Chittagong, in Dhaka, I tell you, during the Ramadan time. So, if you talk about the word regression, it is progression or regression. Looks like we are going back, and we are going back to 7th century utopia. You have any comment on that?
Well, regarding Bangladesh, we very well know that Bangladeshis suffer from an identity crisis. Whether we are are we South Asian? Are we Bengali? Are we Arab? Are we Muslim? We have not defined our identity properly, and Bangladesh will only change with good leadership. And thing is, Bangladesh does not deserve a democracy. It deserves a benevolent dictator, unfortunately. Then only it will change. Because thing is, the change must happen from the root. When we allow bad practices like saying Allah Hafiz rather and replacing Khuda Hafiz, now we are this is breeding danger on fertile ground.
Correct.
So,
yeah. Actually, that's your last word. And as we're running out of time, so as
it was a pleasure.
And it was nice talking to you. and definitely we'll talk more. And thanks to Dastagir Jahangir, who is behind the scene, who is doing all the hard work. Mr. Dastagir Jahangir, thank to you. And Sharjil, thanks a lot for coming to my platform.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Hassan.
we'll see and we'll talk to each other again. And as we said, and obviously, Happy Nowruz again, because we just had the
Thank you.
New Year, Iranian Persian New Year. Happy Nowruz, and take care.
Nowruz Piruz to you as well. Happy Nowruz to you as well.
Take care.
Thank you. Khuda Hafiz. Joy Bangla.
Joy Bangla.
Yes, Joy Bangla.